The first thing that I want to start with is a biblical study on veiling and just looking at one section of the Bible and all of its components. I'm not going to go over every verse and everything. I'm just going to hit on the main points that really reached out to me when I needed them. And that is in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 3 through 16. And it starts with talking about the order of authority that God instilled, that he had planned. So in verse 3, it says, I want you to know that Christ is the head of every man, and a husband the head of his wife, and God the head of Christ. So we have God. We are all Christ's bride. The church is Christ's bride. But then in a marriage with man and woman and his wife, the man is supposed to be the leader. He is supposed to be the head of the family. That doesn't mean it's a dictatorship and that he just controls his wife. It's a relationship where the wife voluntarily submits to her husband because she puts trust in him. She puts her trust in God first, and then in her husband, she trusts in him to lead because she knows, or she should know, and choose a husband who puts his trust in God and follows God. So it's this chain of God and the husband and the wife, and it all works beautifully together, and the veil helps symbolize that. This passage goes on to talk about how men should not veil, but women, on the other hand, should veil. It is something that is very humbling, that it is modest. Hair is very glorious. It's very precious. It's such a pretty thing that we can have on our head. We can curl it, straighten it, make it glorious. But in Mass, it's not about what your hair looks like. And the veil covers your hair. It covers that beautiful aspect that God gave you, because God wants you to be humbled when you're before Christ during Mass. It's about God. It's about what's in front of us. And it's also saying, you know, I have a head covering because my husband and Christ, they are my head. They are my authority. They are my leaders. That is just, you know, small pieces of veiling, is this chain of authority and submission and modesty and humility. It's beautiful. Because men sometimes had gross hair. They would wear hats, as, you know, some guys didn't even have hair, so their hats would be their thing. That would be their glorious thing on their head, would be their hats. So when they went to Mass, women would cover up their pretty hair, and men would take off their hats and reveal their hat hair, which I don't even really want to imagine what that was. So that was humbling for women to hide that beauty, and then humbling for men to be vulnerable and let people see, you know, it's not all about your fancy hat. What's humbling for a man is not always humbling for a woman. What's modest for a man is not always modest for a woman. We're different people, but we do complement each other. And here is my third tidbit for getting you to think more about veiling. Think about the Virgin Mary. She always had head covering on. She represents purity, modesty, obedience. Oh, she was so humble. We, as women, are called to be like the Virgin Mary. And my relationship with her is still in the works and still very new, coming from a Protestant religion into the Catholic Church. But wow, once the Catholic Church opened my eyes up to Mary and all that she really symbolizes, I was like, man, I don't know if I can ever be like her at all. And I've actually really looked to Mary through this whole process on whether to veil or not. I've asked her to pray for me in making the decision and to just continue to pray for me throughout this process of veiling. And I just think that she is someone that we can look up to and see. She, yes, is part of their culture, but some women weren't veiling, but she knew that she wanted to humble herself. What are some small steps I can do on the outside to help my inside change? So maybe, you gotta wear the veil for the right reason. And I'm wanting to humble myself. I'm wanting to make sure that I'm put in my right place, that I'm not better than God. He's the one who is glorious. I am the one who am covering myself up. And, she, again, was so modest and humble that I'm doing this little thing, but it's helping a change in my heart and it's helping a change in my mind. Why am I here at the Mass? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And sometimes you need a visual. You need something physical to do so you can have that inner change. And so that's why I say we should just look to women in the Bible, and especially to the Virgin Mary, and see their characteristics and what they physically did that aligned up with it.